Can't do it without each and every one of you in this room. If you haven't already, please, please, please find a field organizer in this room, sign up to volunteer. We need your help to win this, and the time to get involved is now. The time to get excited is now. We are deciding this election for generations to come, and we need everyone's help to do it. So if you're fired up to meet Bernie, you also need to be fired up to win this election, and that means being at a table, and it means getting those students registered to vote, and it means clapping for me when I'm telling you how important all this stuff is. Yeah, there we go. Awesome, guys. I'm so thankful for each and every one of you who is in this room today. I'm so thankful that each and every one of you in this room will be at a table with us in the coming weeks. And I'm so excited to win this thing. All right, guys, thank you so much. Everyone, yay!
All right. Sorry to disappoint you. You just get me. Yeah, I get. It's a pretty cool honor. I hate to disappoint you all. You got it. All right. So hey, good afternoon now. It's afternoon now. We were in Grand Rapids this morning talking to a lot of motivated people, and it's great to be here in Lansing with a lot of the Spartan family. So it's awesome to be here, and looking forward to hearing from Bernie as always. It's such a great honor to be able to travel around with Bernie and talk about all of our interests and where we got to go and what this is all about. For the UAW. I mean, this is literally sacred ground. I mean, Michigan is where it all started. Oh yeah. But you think about that. It's the birthplace of the UAW, and the sit-down strikes of the 1930s, which marked the beginning of a new era for America's working class. The American dream was literally born in Michigan. And, we're here today because the American dream that was born nearly a century ago it's been on life support. And it's still alive, and it lives on through the UAW and through a lot of unions and a lot of activists that are trying to keep that dream alive. And it lives on through the tens of thousands of workers that we had last year that went on strike to win a better contract, that stood up to the big three. And it definitely lives on in Vice President Kamala Harris, who, when asked the old labor movement question, which side are you on, she never blinks. She knows whose side she's on. We know whose side she's on. She doesn't hesitate. And that's what this election's about. She's on our side. Kamala Harris stands up with the working class. And if it were up to corporate America, we all know that American dream would be dead, and it would have been dead a long time ago. And so I have to tell you, corporate America's trying like hell to destroy communities all across Michigan, all across this country. Corporate America's tried to attack working class families from Grand Rapids to Warren to Lansing right here, to Flint and cities all over America. And it's the same story. But what corporate America has tried to do to our labor movement in general, they do it with union busting. They do it with plant closures. They do it with trade deals like NAFTA, PNTR for China, or the USMCA, or as I like to call it, Trump's NAFTA. That's why, as I speak right now, we're fighting a company in the Big Three again. We just bargained a contract with a year ago, Stellantis. And they're not honoring their contractual commitments that they made to the workers. And yeah, you bet. And the interesting part of this is, Kamala Harris. We know where she stands in this fight. She stood with us when we bargained these contracts, and she stands with us in securing those commitments. And we also know what Donald Trump, where he stands in this. Donald Trump stands for creating the pathway for Stellantis to do what they're doing right now, to not honor their commitments. So, what was born in the sit-down strikes, it can't be killed by plant closings. Over the last 40 years, we've seen the American working class and auto workers in particular beaten down, punch after punch in the gut. But last year, our movement finally delivered a body blow to corporate America with our stand-up strike. Throughout that fight, we won a contract that reopens plants. We won a contract that won back a lot of the sacrifices working class people made over decades of extreme corporate profits. We won a contract that brings back dignity to workers. And that's the thing. It wasn't just to UAW members. It's to working class people everywhere. I talked about this a lot during our fight, after our Big Three fight. You saw the non-union auto companies in the South. They started giving 10%, 11% pay increases and reducing the progression to full pay for their employees. You know why they did that? Because they're scared shitless the UAW is coming for them. So, just like with the great sit-down strikes, we won the stand-up strike by fighting like hell and by having the support of people in power like President Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris stood with us in that fight all the way through, and she still stands with us to this day. And, Donald Trump, during that fight, attacked us. He tried to divide us, and he did nothing to support the American auto workers, although he claims he did. That's right. That's right. That's right. That's right. Yeah, let's hear it. Yeah. You guys got it. I'm glad that message is getting through loud and clear now. Trump applauds billionaires like Elon Musk for threatening to fire striking workers. And he does that because of what you all just said, because Donald Trump is a scab. It's exactly what he is. So here we are. We find ourselves in election season, and the con man's back on the scene. He's talking about how he's going to be tough on corporate America. He's talking about how he's going to bring the jobs back. Under his USMCA trade deal, or Trump's NAFTA, we've seen more plants close and more jobs leaving this country. Trump talked a big game about renegotiating NAFTA with all those great negotiating skills he supposedly has. But his NAFTA 2.0 literally doubled our trade imbalance with Mexico. Auto went up over 20%. Our trade imbalance with auto parts went up over 30%. Trump's NAFTA, you bet he is. Trump's, yeah, amen. So it's Sunday, we're in church now. She said Trump's an idiot. I agree. Look, his NAFTA's been a disaster for working class people, though. And I say this often, when he was president, he was a job killer in chief. We had factories closing all over, and the man did nothing to stop it. And he sits here now, especially in the state of Michigan, telling auto workers that he's their guy, that he's got their back. When he was president, we saw plants in Warren closed, or the Warren transmission plant closed. We saw a plant in Lordstown, Ohio, where he told workers in Lordstown, Ohio, don't sell your houses. And then they turned around and closed the plant. Those workers had to go all over the country. Workers in Baltimore, Maryland, same thing. And right now, under Trump's NAFTA, we see Stellantis threatening to ship over 2,000 jobs from Warren Truck Assembly Plant in Warren, Michigan, to places, yeah. So, Trump is the champion of corporate greed. In his Republican National Convention speech, he railed against the electric vehicle battery industry, the electric vehicle industry as a whole. and said if he was elected, he would kill it. You know, but the interesting thing is something happened. You know, Trump shifted his position a little bit when Elon Musk came calling and with a boatload of money. You know, now all of a sudden, you know, Trump proudly takes Elon Musk $45 million a month because with Trump, everything is for sale. America's for sale under Donald Trump. And that's what this fight's about. I mean, the man brags the fact that Elon Musk is giving him $45 million a month. That is a shame. It's criminal. And it's everything that's wrong with our political system and everything that's wrong in this country right now. You know, on the other side, we have Kamala Harris. I mean, she has stood with striking workers. She's taken on big business. She was one of just 10 senators, along with Bernie Sanders, who you'll hear from in a minute, that voted against Trump's NAFTA. Kamala Harris laid out a vision that puts working class people first because that's who she's fighting for. That's where she comes from. You know, with Kamala Harris and the Biden administration in office, we've seen a bigger U.S. manufacturing boom than at any point in my lifetime. And we're seeing investment in places where I was just earlier, where factories closed. You know, in 2008, 2009, during the recession, it was brought on by 8 years of deregulation and trickle-down economics under Bush 2. A plant closed over in Wyoming, a town right there by Grand Rapids. Thanks to Kamala Harris and President Biden's work, they just announced a new battery plant that's going to be built there, creating jobs. With Harris and Biden in the White House, we've seen auto workers in Lordstown, Ohio, who Donald Trump left behind and told don't sell your houses and did nothing for them. There's an Ultium battery plant that was built there. Over 200 of those workers were displaced by Donald Trump. They've now returned back to Lordstown, Ohio, back home, and they're working at that factory. Thanks to the Inflation Reduction Act, the IRA, under the Biden-Harris administration, we've seen a massive investment in the EV battery industry and CHIPS Act. And you think about this. We went to Ultium, Ohio, where we bargained for those workers at that battery plant. When we took over, those wages were $16.50 an hour, topping out after 7 years at $20. After we bargained their first contract because they supported us in organizing that place, we just bargained the first contract where their starting wages will be $30.50 an hour and over $35 an hour. That's what happens when you have an administration that gives a damn about workers and doesn't just give lip service. We've seen the working class go on offense under the Biden-Harris administration because we have a president and vice president who have our backs in a fight. And we've seen for the first time an auto plant scheduled to reopen. And, you know, I don't have to tell you what that means. I mean, what that means to thousands of workers, to their families, to that community they reside in, the fact that they're going to reopen a plant that was closed. You know, and we only got that because, number one, our union was ready to fight like hell, and number two, because Kamala Harris and Joe Biden stood with us in that fight. So, you know, this election, it's not about a choice between personalities. It's a choice between a future where the rich get richer off the backs of the working class people's labor, or it's a future where we, the working class, take back our lives. And that's what this fight's about. And we know Kamala Harris stands with us in that fight, as does Governor Walz. And I can tell you that right now, you know, so it's our time to stand up for them. You know, Donald Trump is a scab that will always kill working class American jobs and auto jobs if it saves Wall Street a penny. That's what he stands for. He represents the billionaire class and the corporate class, and he doesn't give a damn about the working class. You know, just this week, think about this, as Trump is traveling Michigan, talking to auto workers and union workers and any worker that will listen to him, He's literally saying, you know, I've got your future. You know, I'm going to take care of you. I got your back. And just this week, his pick for vice president, J.D. Vance. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yep. You got that right. You know, but J.D. Vance actually was saying this week that if they're elected, they're going to consider killing a $500 million investment right here in Lansing at the Grand River Assembly Complex. $500 million gone. These are the same people telling these workers they give a damn about them. They're going to fight for them. And in the next breath, they're saying we're going to kill an investment of $500 million in your plant and in your community. So, you know, for auto workers, I mean, this isn't about a culture war over EVs. This is about our livelihoods. And it's for all working class people. It doesn't matter if you're auto or not. You know, our Big Three fight a year ago, 75% of America stood with us in that fight. Not because they're auto workers. They stood with us for one reason. Because working class people, union or not, have been left behind by decades of trickle-down economics and deregulation that don't work for working class people. So when it comes to this transition, you hear about EVs and this big debate and Trump saying it's going to kill us. I mean, Trump's already conceded this whole industry to China. I mean, you talk about a loser. He's already saying, basically, you know, China's going to take all this. He's just ceding all that work, you know, and that's the difference in what true leaders do. The Biden-Harris administration said, screw that. We're coming after this. So they put over hundreds of billions of dollars in investment in this country to build factories, to go after that work, and to ensure that work stays here. That's what leaders do. And our members, you know, our members don't go to work every day because they're passionate about internal combustible engines or EV battery work. You know, they're passionate about their families, about their lives, and about the communities we live in. And so, you know, while Trump believes striking workers should be fired, you know, Kamala Harris has stood shoulder to shoulder on the picket line with striking workers. You go back to 2019, that's right. Yeah. (2019) when Donald Trump, who claims he cares about workers so much, when GM was on strike for 40 days, the president at the time, Donald Trump, was nowhere to be found. You know where Kamala Harris was? She was standing on the picket line with striking workers. But, you know, this election, you know, I don't want to talk just about auto and just, I mean, the UAW is a big union. We have state workers here. We cover people from gaming, you know, agricultural implement, you know, technical office professional. We have people in every sector you can think of, nurses, police officers, everything. And the thing is, you know, this election, it's not about just the UAW. It's not about union jobs. It's about working class people. And the bigger thing to me in this election is what this is about. It's about humanity. It's about where we want to go as a nation. And, you know, one of the things Kamala Harris, we know she'll do, she'll protect a woman's right to choose what she wants to do with her body. You know, Donald Trump believes he has a right to control a woman's body. He says it in his own words. And, you know, Trump's party calls this a right to life. You know, I call it a right to birth, a right to infringe on women. But, you know, and this is what's amazing to me, you know, they never have this dialogue. But, you know, once that baby is born, where's that party at then? They don't give a damn if that baby has food, if that baby has clothes, if that baby has shelter. They don't give a damn if when it's old enough to go to school it gets an education. They don't give a damn if after you go to school, you know, after you go to high school or college, they don't give a damn if you have a right to a living wage to make a living off of. They don't give a damn if you have adequate health care. They don't give a damn if you have retirement security when you're too old to work but too young to die. So, you know, this whole concept of right to life is complete bullshit because life begins at childbirth. It don't end there. And in the UAW, we have 4 core principles that we fight for, that all working class people deserve, that every American in this country deserves, that every citizen in this world deserves. A right to a living wage. No matter what work somebody does, all work has value. You know, people used to like degrade, workers in the fast food industry, or talk about like a McDonald's worker as some type of second-class citizen. You know, we saw how important that industry was during the COVID pandemic. And if there was ever one silver lining in the COVID pandemic, it was this. There was a great lesson in that pandemic. You know, fast food workers said, screw this. I'm not going to work for 10 or 12 bucks an hour and risking my life. And what happened? Wages went up to $20, $25 an hour. All of a sudden, they could find the money to pay those workers. So there's a great lesson. There's a great lesson in that. I mean, and the lesson in that is this. When we stand together as working class people, when we withhold our labor, nothing moves. And that's what this movement's about. Working class people have to take our power back by standing together. And, the billionaire class and corporate class can build all the businesses they want to build. But if there's not workers there to do the work, nothing moves. That's the power we have. And when we talk about living wages, I'm not talking about minimum wages. That's a sick reality. 80 years ago, they established a minimum wage. And I got to tell you, the minimum wage was established as to not to be a minimum, not to be a bare sustenance, not to be a summer job for teenagers. Minimum wage was established for a person to make a living off of. We've let politicians twist this into some type of bullshit that we could believe it's just a summer job. So we've got to fight for living wages no matter what work somebody does. So that's our first core thing. The second core thing we talk about is adequate health care. We're in the richest country in the world, in our history. And it's criminal. We rank like 26th or 30th in health care. It's pathetic. There is no excuse for this. Every person should have a right to adequate health care in this country. And we shouldn't have to lose your home or declare bankruptcy because you can't afford to pay medical bills. And if you've made a living wage and you have adequate health care and you move on through life and you get to a point where you're too old to work and too young to die, you ought to have dignity when you retire. You ought to have retirement security. Used to be pensions were the norm. Now, less than 13% of Americans have a pension. 60% of Americans have no retirement savings. And you think about that. It's not because people aren't responsible. It's because by the time they go to work and they work 2 or 3 jobs or they work 7 days a week, 12 hours a day, and they're scraping to get by paycheck to paycheck, there's not enough at the end of the month or the end of the week to save. That's what's wrong with this fight. And, and finally, we talk about the fourth thing we look at. It's a right to take our time back, to take our lives back. Time is our greatest natural resource. It's our greatest resource that we have. Nobody on the end of their life talks about they wish they would have worked more or spent more time busting their ass at the office. I mean, people wish for more time. They wish for more time with their family, with their friends, more time to pursue the things they couldn't do because they didn't have time because they had to work their asses off 24/7 to make ends meet. That's what this fight's about. That's why we talk about a 32-hour work week. Yeah. We have to master technology, and unfortunately, in the last several decades, we've let technology master us because we're letting the corporate America define what technology is. What they do, they use advances in technology to eliminate jobs and to leave the people who are left with a job working harder and longer. They got this backwards. We should be using technology so that we work less for the same money or more money so that we can spend more of our time with our families, at home with our kids, or doing things we want to do. That's what makes us whole. You know, and all these things, because people are working their asses off and they're stressed to death. They can't pay the bills at the end of the week. You know, something happened here, you know, a year ago, and we've seen this happen over and over in this country. You know, we had the unfortunate tragedy of a school shooting. And, you know, we saw that play out right here. And, you know, the words, every time there's something like that happens, we hear about mental health. You know, it's a mental health issue. Well, you know, they never talk about the root cause of this mental health issue. They never talk about the fact, you know, that, look, people are working their asses off and they feel like they can't make it. You know, they're trying to take care of a family, or they're just trying to take care of themselves. You know, they can't get ahead. And, you know, people get their jobs stripped away from them, whatever the reason. When that happens, you know, people are stressed. They turn to alcohol. They turn to drugs. You know, they turn to suicide even. And, you know, that's what this crisis is about. And the cause of this crisis is because three families in America have as much wealth as the bottom 50% of Americans. That's the crisis. When three families get that rich, it's because they're exploiting millions of people. And, you know, all that stress takes a toll on people's bodies, on their minds. And so, you know, America, we are better than that. Michigan, we're better than that. We're damn good better than that. And it's up to us to change this course we've been on. And, you know, that's the thing. That's what is so important about Kamala Harris and her campaign. Because this campaign is about two very different visions for America. We know Trump's vision. It's the rich keep getting richer and everybody else keeps scraping to get by, and you're on your own. Screw you. Kamala Harris, she comes from the working class. She'll fight for a living wage for working class people. You know, Trump believes in a race to the bottom, where factories close, businesses close and relocate, and you know, workers can be exploited, you know, for you know, poverty, wages, and the environments can be exploited. You know, Kamala Harris believes in health care for everybody. Trump believes in health care for those who can pay for it. You know, Kamala Harris believes in retirement security for all Americans. She pledged, along with President Biden, to never cut Social Security or Medicare. Every year of Trump's presidency, every year he was president, they tried to cut Social Security and Medicare. They went after it. And don't think that's going to stop if he gets back in. You know, Kamala Harris believes in workers not having to work 2 to 3 jobs, you know, to pay the bills. She believes in a living wage. You know, Donald Trump believes that workers are the means, you know, to an end for the rich to get richer with no regard for the workers who generate the profits. Kamala Harris believes in eliminating student debt. So college, yeah. You know, so college graduates aren't entering the workforce with a mountain of debt where they can never get ahead. I mean, Donald Trump believes in profiting off of students. You know, we saw that with his scam college he ran, where he just took money from people. You know, there's another issue. Nobody should be put out on the street because they can't afford rent or the rent's too damn high. And, yeah. You know, Kamala Harris was talking about in her vision, you know, about affordable housing and rent, and creating a program to put millions of first-time home buyers in new homes with the assistance of a $50,000 down payment. You know, Donald Trump, on the other side, believes in profiting off of students and working class people by raising rents and real estate prices. That's how they make their money. You know, this election, you know, it's about a united America. That's what Kamala Harris and Tim Walz's campaign has been about. It's been about bringing workers together, bringing people together. And that's where, as a union, we find our power. You know, we find our power, even not just as a union, but as working class people, as a nation, we find our power when we stand together in solidarity. That's our strength. But on the other side of that fight with Trump, he employs the oldest trick in the book. And that's how the billionaire class and the corporate class have been eating our lunch for decades. It's about dividing the people so the rich can continue to take all the profits. They divide us over race. They'll divide us over who we love. They'll divide us over this manufactured border crisis. You know, You know, Trump and Republicans do this by trying to put a face as a reason for the blame of working class people's frustrations. And, you know, they do this because the last thing Trump and the billionaire class want is for Americans to focus on the real cause of their anger, and that's corporate greed. And you know, it's Sunday, so I'm gonna get a little bit soulful here, but you know, we have a political party that loves to hold up their Bible. They love to wrap themselves in a flag, and then they love to tell you if you don't support them, you're not a good Christian and you're not a patriot. You know, I can guarantee you, knowing what I know and the Bible I've read, if these people ever read that, they've never opened the damn Bible, because half the stuff they stand for, the Bible goes against every bit of it. You know, when Jesus was tested by the lawyers, he was asked, what's the greatest commandment? He said, love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your mind, and all your soul. And the second one is like it, love thy neighbor as thyself, meaning love your fellow human being. And in fact, any religion you look at, I don't care what the religion is, every religion I know of is founded in the love of your fellow human being as the foundation of that religion. So, you know, when I hear about this manufactured border crisis, you know, these human beings at the border, they're destitute and desperate people trying to find a better life. And when I see them, I don't see what Trump calls rapists and murderers and invaders. I see my grandparents. And I'll tell you, the only difference in my grandparents and those people trying to cross the border are simply this. My grandparents were in a Great Depression in the 1930s. They left the hills of Tennessee and Kentucky, and they crossed state lines, and they went north, and they got jobs in General Motors and Chrysler, and they lived the American dream. That's all these people are trying to find. You know, there's this crazy, I see these commercials and all these bullshit ads from the Trump team about these people are taking our jobs. They ain't taking our jobs. They're doing the shit work that nobody wants to do. And at the end of the day, these are human beings. And that's the thing. That's how the corporate class and the billionaire class get over on us. They try to divide us, and they want to dehumanize people because they don't want you to see them as human beings. They want you to see them as the problem for your misery. And the only problem for your misery is these corporations and these billionaires taking everything and leaving us all behind. We are at our best when we welcome the stranger. We are at our best when we unite and we support and love one another. And I find a real twisted irony that Donald Trump is from New York, lives in New York, where you have the great Statue of Liberty, that literally is a symbol for people coming to America that said, give me your weak, you're tired, you're poor. You know, it didn't say what Trump says, build that wall and stay the fuck out unless you're white, you look like me, and you act like me. You know, and you look at who we are as human beings. You know, if you want to understand what all human beings desire, what's ingrained in us, look no further than when there is a disaster, a tragedy, like an earthquake, a hurricane, you know, a tsunami. We don't ask what a person's political beliefs are when that happens. We don't look for their race or their gender or their nationality. We spring into action because we see our fellow human beings suffering. We want to ease that suffering. That's who we are. And that, contrary to what Trump says, that is what makes America great, not Trump's hate. You know, and that's, many of you have probably seen the movie Hidden Figures. You know, I think it's a great movie. But, you know, one of my favorite lines from that movie is literally when NASA engineers and the mathematicians were trying to solve the formula for re-entry into the Earth's atmosphere. And, you know, the man that ran the lab at that time made the comment, we either get there together or we don't get there at all. That is what this mission's about. Kamala Harris understands that mission, because what you see from the Harris campaign is talking about uniting and coming together and making this a better nation as one, not this division as the other side likes to preach. And so those are the reasons why we have to work like hell to get Kamala Harris elected, because the America she believes in is one where we all stand together. She believes in unity, and that's how we're going to succeed. So, Michigan, I got to say this to you in Lansing. It's our time. You know, are you ready to stand up, speak up, and show up? I see a lot of college-age students here and college-age people here, and you guys, this election, this ain't about me. I'm 55. I'm going to be fine. This election is, I say it all the time, it's our generation's defining moment. But it's not just about our generation. It's about your generation, the generation after you. My grandparents' generation, the Depression, they did what they did so we would all have a great future. That's why I'm standing here today. So this is a generation-defining moment, and if you want a future, this is your chance to decide the future you want for the country you live in. It's one of division. That's right. We're not going back. That's right. That's right. So if we don't want to go back, we have got to bust our asses for the next 30 days. You got to talk to everyone you know. Be sure they vote. It cannot be any easier to vote than we've made it now. Secretary of State Benson, we have early voting now. So on top of absentee ballot voting, you can vote up to 9 or 10 days before the election day. So there is no excuse. We got everybody you know. Talk to them. Get them out there. Get them to vote for Kamala Harris. That's how we're going to win this. That's what we got to do. We got to pledge that. So again, this is our defining moment. This is our fight, and with Kamala Harris, we're going to win. And so I appreciate your time, and I appreciate you letting me go way the hell over, because I know you came here to see somebody else. So, and I got to tell you, there's not a better person in the world to be in a fight with than Bernie Sanders. This guy is an amazing human being. It's an honor to work with him. It's an honor to campaign with him. It's an honor to be in a fight with him, because I can tell you right now, there's not a bigger advocate in this country than Bernie Sanders for working class people. So with that, I'm going to call up an American hero, a working class hero, my good friend Bernie Sanders.
Thank you, Michigan State. And before he leaves the stage, I want to say a word about Shawn Fain. All over this country, people are sick and tired of corporate greed. They're sick and tired of CEOs making 300 times more than their average worker. They're sick and tired of the wealthiest people in this country becoming much richer, while 60% of our people are living paycheck to paycheck. And Shawn Fain and the UAW walked into the negotiations with the automobile industry, and they said, guess what? You guys, you CEOs, are making tens of millions of dollars a year. Your compensation packages in recent years has soared. And we got guys in the plants, we got women in the plants making 16, 17, 18 bucks an hour. And you know what, CEOs? You ain't going to continue that. And what the UAW did in negotiating a very strong contract for their workers sent the message to workers all over this country that you can stand up, fight back, and take on the corporate interest. Shawn, thank you very much. So let me get to the point. Shawn made it. We're here to make sure that Kamala Harris is the next president of the United States. And when we talk about not going back, what we're saying, no more racism, no more sexism, no more homophobia, no more xenophobia. And when we talk about going forward, we're talking about a government that represents all of us, not just the billionaire class. Now, I could go on for too long a time giving you all the reasons why Donald Trump should not be elected president. But let me limit myself. Number one, and I mean this one really seriously, I don't care what your political views are. I know people in this room probably sympathetic to Shawn and me and Kamala, but there are people out there who may not agree with everything I stand for, one or two. And, you know, there are folks who disagree with Kamala, and that's fine. That's called democracy. That's fine. But this is what I hope. If you are a conservative Republican, you are raising your kids, like everybody else in America as a parent tries to do, to tell the truth, right? What difference? You're Republican, Democrat, you'd say to your kids, tell the truth, even when it's hard. Don't be a bully. Don't go to your classroom and you see somebody who maybe looks a little bit different, acts a little bit different, may not, be all that strong. Don't pick on that person. We, as a nation, cannot have as president somebody who is a bully and a pathological liar. And interestingly enough, it is not just people like me who are saying that. The people who have been closest to Trump when he was president, they said, we know the guy, don't vote for him. And these are conservatives. Mike Pence and I agree on nothing except that Donald Trump is not fit to be president. Dick Cheney and Liz Cheney and I agree on probably even less, except they know Trump, and they know that a person of his lack of character should not be president of the United States. But it's not just that he is a pathological liar. In Michigan, in Vermont, all over this country, people have put their lives on the line in the armed forces to defend our nation and to defend our democracy, our American way of life. And what democracy, the heart and soul of democracy, is elections. And I've been in a lot of elections. Sometimes I've lost. Fortunately, most times I've won. And that's what happens when you run for office. Sometimes you win, and sometimes you lose. But what people who believe in democracy understand is that when you lose an election, you get on the phone, you congratulate the winner, and you learn from your defeat. You don't go whining and crying and say, oh my goodness, they stole the election. Oh boy, terrible, terrible. The only way I could lose is if there is fraud. When you do that, you undermine American democracy. If you go around, I want you to think about it for 2 seconds. If somebody goes around as Trump has, it's the only way I can lose an election is if there is fraud. That means he has no intention of accepting defeat. And we all know what happened. We all know that he encouraged an insurrection for the first time in American history to prevent the peaceful transfer of power. So if you believe in democracy, if you believe in the rule of law, no matter what your politics may be, you cannot support Donald Trump for president. All of us are aware, we're all aware of what is going on in North Carolina right now. Over 200 people are dead, probably billions of dollars in destruction, not only in North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Florida. Terrible, terrible situation. But I want everybody here to understand that is not an aberration. That is not, oh my God, something terrible. They've had an unprecedented storm in North Carolina that destroyed communities. What we are seeing all over America, all over the world, are unprecedented weather disturbances. We have seen forest fires all over California and Canada. We have seen heat waves, record-breaking heat waves in Europe, drought here in the Midwest. We have seen temperatures soar to over 120 degrees in India and Saudi Arabia. People are dying. People can't go out on the streets, coming close to as high as human beings can tolerate. Every scientist who has studied the issue understands that climate change is real. It is caused by human activity. And they understand that if we're going to save this planet and provide a decent life for our kids and future generations, we got to transform our energy system away from fossil fuel. That's what they understand. Donald Trump, on the other hand, and I quote, thinks that climate change is a hoax originating in China, end quote. All right. Now, not only is that a dumb statement, not only it is a statement at odds with the entire scientific community, but it's much more than that. And I want you to hear this clearly. If Trump gets elected president, the fight against climate change is over. We have surrendered. We have lost. And for you younger people, I worry very much what this planet will look like in your lifetimes and in your kids and in your grandchildren's lives. Because if the United States, the largest economy in the world, turns its back on the fight against climate change, China will do the same, Europe will do the same, and all over the world people say, hey, the United States says drill, baby, drill. We don't have to worry about climate change, and the future of this planet is very much in doubt. That's what this election is about. And I'll tell you something else that this election is about. Since the inception of this country, way back, George Washington's time, women have been fighting for equal rights. And they have struggled along with their male allies to end second-class citizenship. It wasn't until 1920 that women won the right to vote in national elections. 30, 40, 50 years ago, women were unable to get the education that they desired. Couldn't get the work that they desired. When I was mayor of Burlington, Vermont, in the 1980s, when I came to office, there were 0 women in police departments because that wasn't women's work. Being an electrician, a welder, a plumber, construction work, not women's work. Being in the military, not women's work. But women and their male allies fought to break down those barriers, and they won. And then a few years ago, the Supreme Court rendered one of the worst decisions in its history in Roe v. Wade. And they took away a woman's constitutional right to control her own body. Now, Donald Trump boasts, he is proud. He appointed 3 right-wing Supreme Court justices who helped make that terrible decision possible. Kamala Harris has spent her life fighting for women's rights. The choice is clear: Kamala Harris for president. Now let me say a few things that you're not going to see much about on corporate media or in the halls of the Congress. And that is, today we are living in an economy which is just great for the people on top. And I want you to hear this clearly. The 1% today are the 1% that have never, ever in the history of America had it so good. While 60% of our people are living paycheck to paycheck, today we have more income and wealth inequality than we have ever had in the history of our country. We have more concentration of ownership than we've ever had. That means in every sector of the economy: agriculture, transportation, financial services, media, you name it. Fewer and fewer large corporations control what is produced and the prices that we pay. We have today more corporate greed than at any time in the history of this country. You know why prices are soaring? Check out the corporate profits of the companies that are raising prices. If you can believe it, and I'm a little embarrassed to give you this information, but you got to know it. In America today, you got 3 people who own more wealth than the bottom half of American society. Now, the other day, Donald Trump, it was yesterday actually, had a rally, and at his side was Elon Musk. Now, while Shawn, Fain, and the UAW are fighting for wage increases for people who make $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 a year, Elon Musk fought for a salary increase of $50 billion. Well, they gave it to him, but the judge just overruled that, so. I know it's hard, Elon. You're going to have to make it on the $150 billion. All right. We'll help you out when you need it, but try to survive. And in the midst of all of this income and wealth inequality, we have a rigged tax system. So the billionaire class pays an effective tax rate lower than a truck driver or a nurse, and you got large corporations out there that in some cases make billions, pay virtually nothing in federal income tax. You know, we have in America a lot of anger. People are feeling very angry. And you know what? They have a right to be angry. But if you are angry, make sure you know who you're getting angry at and why you're getting angry at them. Don't get angry at people who are worse off than you are. Get angry at the people who caused the problem and are benefiting from the issues. So when you talk about why people are angry, I want you all to listen to this. Over the last 50 years, while there has been, as all of you know, an explosion in technology and a huge increase in worker productivity, the average American worker today is earning, in inflation adjusted for dollars, less than he or she did 50 years ago. That's why people are angry. In your generation, younger people, everything being equal, unless we turn it around, and we must turn it around, your generation may have a lower standard of living than your parents. So what we have got to do is to make it clear that this country belongs to all of us, not just the people on top. Now, the reason I love doing these events with Shawn is that Shawn is one of the great labor leaders in this country. And what we need to do now, we need to do the day after Kamala wins, is build a political movement of working people who are going to fight for the needs of working people. Now, I'm the chairman of an important committee, the Health, Education, Labor Committee in Washington. I deal with the billionaires every single day. And let me say a few things about them. These are not nice guys. You know, they come across on TV, they're smart, they're this, they're that. They make contributions to the Children's Hospital, do all these things. But at the end of the day, they are extraordinarily greedy people. They want it all. You would think that if you're worth a few $1 billion, you might relax a little bit. Enjoy your life. Not them. They need billions more. And if they have to see Social Security and Medicare cut so they can get more tax breaks, that's what they want. They have an endless amount of money, and I mean endless. I mean, you're seeing it on TV right now. One of the issues, I want everybody to be clear about this, one of the major issues that we have got to deal with as a nation is a corrupt campaign finance system. You know, what democracy is about is one person, one vote. You got to vote, you got to vote, you got to vote. What democracy is not supposed to be about is billionaires in both parties through their super PACs buying elections and having undue influence in the political process. Now, I would like many of you, and one of the things that I'm really proud of is that over the last number of years, we have seen more and more young people run for office and win. Check out the Progressive Caucus in the U.S. Congress. Dozens of young people, often people of color, who are fighting for the working class in this country. So I would like you to run for office, but I don't want you to have to beg wealthy people for campaign contributions. That's why we need public funding of elections. Now, the agenda that I am fighting for, the progressive agenda that Shawn and I and others are fighting for, people like Donald Trump think it's far left. We are far left. So let me tell you a little bit about the so-called far left agenda. Shawn and I and others have the wild and radical and crazy idea. Are you ready? I mean, I don't want you collapsing now. All right, brace yourself. Take a deep breath. We think health care is a human right, should be available to all people. I know, my God, how radical far left can you be? Just so happens that every other major country on earth guarantees health care to all people. You know what's radical? What's radical is having a health care system where we spend twice as much per capita on health care as other nations and have 87 million people uninsured or underinsured. That's radical. What's radical is that we pay by far the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs. That's radical. So the far left agenda says that every man, woman, and child in this country should have health care as a human right without out-of-pocket expense. That the function of a health care system is not just to make billions in profit for the insurance companies and the drug companies, but health care for all. All right, I've given you one far-out, crazy, radical idea. Ready for another one? Okay. Now, this one you really got to brace yourself, will you? I don't know if we have any EMT people in the room. I don't want people collapsing on me right and left. All right, medical staff, are you ready? Here we go. We have to raise the minimum wage to a living wage. Oh, God. You want to hear a radical idea? The radical idea is we have a minimum wage in Washington right now of $7.25 an hour. That's pretty radical. That's pretty crazy. So I think we should make sure that everybody in this country who's working 40 hours a week is not living in poverty. I think we should raise the minimum wage, in my view, to at least $17 an hour. All over this country, the good news is that workers want to join unions. Because they know that when you are part of a union, you engage in collective bargaining, you can earn decent wages, decent benefit, decent working conditions. The problem is right now, you got many large corporations and companies that use all kinds of illegal activity to make it harder for workers to join unions. They fire workers, they threaten workers, they're going to shut down the plant, et cetera, et cetera. And that is why we have to pass what we call the PRO Act to make it easier for workers to join unions. We live in a competitive global economy. We do not do well unless we have the best educated workforce in the world. We used to have the highest percentage of our people as college graduates. That is no longer the case. What we need to do is make sure that any person, young, old, blue collar, whatever you may be, who needs a higher education, you want to go to college, great. You want to learn how to become an electrician, a welder, great. Whether you want to go to medical school, great. But whatever you need to do, you should not have to go bankrupt or go deeply into financial debt to pay for that education. Now, under President Biden and Vice President Harris, we have canceled student debt for 5 million Americans. In my view, we have got to do more, but something else that we've got to do is make sure that every public college and university in America, including Michigan State, every community college, tuition free. One of the very first things that Kamala Harris talked about when she became the Democratic candidate was the housing crisis in America. And she's absolutely right, whether it is Burlington, Vermont, my city, or wherever it is. We have a homelessness problem, and we have a problem in the sense that working families in many cases are paying 40, 50, 60% of their limited incomes for housing. And when you spend so much on housing, you don't have anything left to spend on your other needs. So what Kamala said, which is right, we have got to build 3 million units of affordable and low-income housing in America. And we've got to end the greed of these corporate landlords who are swallowing up housing units all over this country. %25% of senior citizens in this country are living on $15,000 a year or less. I haven't a clue how anybody, let alone a senior, can live on $15,000 or less. Meanwhile, my Republican colleagues, 80% of my Republican colleagues in the House, they want to cut Social Security, raise the retirement age, etc. So if I have anything to say about it, and I do, we ain't going to cut Social Security. You know what we're going to do? We're going to expand Social Security. We're going to lift the cap on taxable income, and when you do that, you can significantly increase the kind of benefits that our recipients get. And for the younger people, we can extend the life solvency of Social Security for decades. And while we move toward a Medicare for all single-payer program, we could take immediate steps by expanding Medicare to cover dental, hearing, and vision. And some of my critics say, well, you know, those are nice ideas, Bernie. How are you going to pay for them? I will tell you how we're going to pay for them. At a time when the richest people in this country have never, ever had it so good. When, as I mentioned earlier, the effective tax rates of billionaires is lower than what you are paying in effective tax rate. Yes, we say to the billionaire class, whether you like it or not, you're going to start paying your fair share of taxes. We're spending $1 trillion a year on the Pentagon. $1 trillion a year. It's the only agency of government that has not submitted to an independent audit. There's a lot of waste and fraud. We want a strong military. I believe in that. But I don't believe in massive waste and fraud and excessive profiteering in the military-industrial complex. So, my friends, here we are at a pivotal moment in American history. We are looking at an economy which is undergoing massive change through artificial intelligence and robotics and other technologies. And we have got to ask ourselves, who's going to benefit from all of that change? Now, Shawn and the UAW, when they started negotiating their contracts, people thought they were crazy. You know, not just they were asking for wage increases and other things. They were asking for a 32-hour work week. People said, what are you talking about? And what Shawn understands, and what people all over this country understand, is that if we're going to see an increase in worker productivity, it should be the working class of this country that benefits from that increase, not just the people on top. So we are talking about a reduction in the work week. And let me tell you something that is almost never talked about. As a nation, despite spending twice as much as other countries on health care, our life expectancy, how long we live, is lower than most other countries. That's bad. But I'll tell you what is even worse. The gap in life expectancy between the 1% and the working class is about 10 years. And there are many parts of America today where life expectancy is actually in decline because of what physicians call diseases of despair, drug addiction, alcoholism, and even suicide. People are giving up hope. So one of the reasons for that decline in life expectancy, it's not just healthcare, that's important, but it's not the only reason. What is the other reason? What are working class people exposed to every day? What's the word? Well, yeah, but the word is stress. What do I mean by that? What do I mean? I grew up in a working class family, and I know what stress in a family is about. What it is about is if your landlord raises your rent by 20%, if you're rich, you say, oh, it's too bad. All right, dear, make out the check. Who cares? We got the money. If you don't have the money and your landlord raises rent by 20%, what do? You got to move. You got to find another apartment. Where is an apartment? If my kid's in school, I'm going to have to take my child out of school, find another school for the kid, and go through all of that stuff. If I get sick, or my kid gets sick, or my mother gets sick, and we have an insurance policy with a large deductible, how in God's name am I going to pay? What do? Not eat in order to pay the doctor's bill. You know, if you're rich and your car breaks down, you take it to the repair guy, costs $500 or $1,000, so what? If you don't have any money and your car breaks down and you can't get it back, you can't get to work. And if you can't get to work, you get fired. That's what stress is about. And when you live under those conditions, how am I going to feed my family? How am I going to pay the rent? How am I going to pay the doctor bill? When you live under that stress 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, it eats away at your body. It wears your body down. That's not Bernie Sanders, the scientist. That's what the doctors tell us. And it breaks your spirit and affects your mental health. So when we talk about using the new technology to create a better world, not to throw workers out on the street, what we're saying is that in America, we want that technology to create a better life for all of our people. And if worker productivity is going to be improved, that's great. Workers benefit from that, not just the CEOs and the large corporations. All right, let me conclude by saying this. Next 4 weeks, got to work our tails off to see the Kamala and Tim are elected. The day after, we have got to continue the struggle because we are taking on some very powerful forces. We are the wealthiest nation in the history of the world. There is no reason why we are the only major country not to guarantee health care to all, not to guarantee paid family and medical leave, while we have a starvation minimum wage, while we have massive income and wealth inequality, why we have a high housing crisis, why 25% of our seniors are living on $15,000 a year. That is not the America we should be. Now, the people on top, they got all kinds of money, unlimited amounts of money. They have an enormous amount of political influence. Now, I don't have a PhD in mathematics, but I do know this. 99% is a hell of a larger number than 1%. So if we stand together and not let demagogues divide us up by the color of our skin or where we were born or our sexual orientation, if we stand together and fight for a nation of economic, social, racial justice, we can create an extraordinary nation in which all of our people have a high quality of life. That's the goal. Let's do it. Thank you all very much.
All right, great job.